Hi, I'm Marcus Messner. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Mass Communications at Virginia Commonwealth University. I just finished my 4th year as a journalism professor there, and I teach in the undergraduate and graduate journalism program at VCU. But before I start my presentation today, let me thank the Mass Comm and Society Division and the Graduate Education Interest Group for giving me this 3rd place award. I'm really honored by this, and want to take the opportunity to share some of my teaching principles with you here today. So my presentation is called Turning Challenges into Opportunities, Embracing New Media Changes in the Classroom. And my teaching philosophy stems from my professional background. Before getting into academia, I was a political and business reporter for a daily newspaper. So I make all of my classes, whether it's my social media class, whether it's my graduate online business of media class, or whether it's my traditional reporting for print and web class. I try to make all of my classes very real life, very connected to what's going on in the profession. So unfortunately I can't be in St. Louis this week due to a personal matter that doesn't allow me to leave Richmond this week. But I have posted all of my resources on my website. You see the URL here. Feel free to download anything that you like. Also, feel free to contact me on Twitter or shoot me an email. I'd be glad to continue the conversation with you and share resources that I have developed for my classes. So, as you all know, there is a lot of change, a lot of challenges in journalism, in the media environment in general right now, and that change creates a lot of uncertainty. So some of the questions that we're asking in our journalism classes is how are we going to fund quality journalism in the future with the business models being challenged right now? Can iPad apps be the saviors for the newsrooms? And are we actually going to make some money with social media? What's the return on investment there? How do we report news in 140 characters? And who can still do multimedia with all of these shrinking resources? So there are a lot of challenges in our profession, and all of these challenges have an impact on how I teach my classes. Because what I often hear from colleagues is, what are we teaching our students when they actually do not have a very good chance of being hired by newspapers, since many of the newspapers are struggling. Some are saying they're dying around us, and if you just look at some of these random headlines that are pulled, that just stresses that point. So, but I believe all of the changes that are happening right now to the business models, to the technology, they're also an opportunity, and they're a real opportunity for our students. And my strategy is to let the students be the driving force of this change. So all of my classes are targeting to preparing our students for this change in media organizations and in newsrooms. So my teaching philosophy is that my students' future is absolutely my task. I take ownership of the career perspectives of my students, and I want them to embrace change, and I want them to drive change. And I do that by opening my class up to them for their input. So when I start a class, I tell my students that I want them and me together to face these challenges and come up with alternative ways to master these challenges, to move our profession forward. And I'm very honest with them in that I say that I do not have all of the answers at the beginning of the class. That's not because I don't prepare, but it's because technology platforms are moving so quickly that it's impossible to keep up. For example, this summer I was teaching a social media networking class, and in the middle of the class we suddenly have the launch of Google+. So you cannot really prepare for that, but you can be very honest to the students and say, we're going to tackle these challenges together, and we're going to make them work for our advantage. So these are some of the teaching principles that I implement in my classes. I partner with my students. I build external partnerships that my students work under to develop their projects. I provide or pose real-life challenges to the students that they get feedback from me, but they are also getting criticism and feedback from professionals. In that process, they're learning to innovate, and at the end, they are ready to change the ways that our profession is working today. So when I say that I'm partnering with my students, by that, for example, I mean that in my social media class and a business of media class, I share resources on an online social bookmarking tool called Delicious, and I make my resources available there, but I also challenge my students to assign me readings and share resources with me. So in that way, I get them to take ownership of what we're going to accomplish in our class. In my reporting class, I also run that class more as a newsroom than a traditional class. So all of my students are constantly pitching, defending, arguing their stories with me and their classmates, and I encourage them to challenge me as well. I build a lot of external partnerships, especially with local media, local news organizations in the Central Virginia area where we're located. So, for example, I do reporting projects with our local portal, richmond.com. This spring, I did an iPad business plan project with Media General and the Daily Progress in Charlottesville, which is about an hour from Richmond. And the summer, I did with a colleague, we did a social media campaign projects for nonprofit organizations in Richmond. Here you see a couple like the Daily Planet or Read Aloud Virginia, a book bank, for which my students developed social media campaigns.
This year is no different, considering the advent of the iPad and what we think is probably an inflection point for our business, for many publishers, with the opportunity to get into this new format.
That was Michael Fivison, who is one of the media partners that my students have worked with this last spring. Michael Fivison, who is now at Yahoo in New York. He was the vice president for digital media at Media General here in Richmond. He was responsible for Virginia and Tennessee. And so I asked Michael to work with my graduate students in my business of media class and to pose a real-life challenge to them. And so the challenge that we together posed to the students was to develop a business plan for the iPad for the Daily Progress, which is a daily newspaper in Charlottesville, about an hour here from Richmond. So Michael got the publisher involved of the newspaper, and then the publisher send an email to the students, and you can see here a little bit of what they wanted to do in this project. And we got on several conference calls with Michael, who used our Blackboard site. You can see on the left side here, you can see some of the archived conference calls. And in that, Michael Fivison was outlining his expectations, and students were able to ask him questions. And in the end, students were able to develop 5 business plans in their teams for this newspaper that then were handed over to the publisher. So what's important to me in these real-life projects is that the students do not only brainstorm and come up with their own ideas, but that they're actually doing extensive research before they're developing innovative projects. And so they had to do interviews with Michael Fivison through our online chat room, and they had to interview other media managers that they could select, so that they would get a lot of input on the problems, challenges, but also opportunities for the iPad. So and then what's important to me is that my students learn to innovate in all different levels, whether that is at a very beginner level in my reporting class, they're writing event previews, as you can see here at the right-hand bottom, but they're writing these event previews for a local portal, richmond.com, or whether it's in my social media class that they're producing high-quality web videos, or they are creating Facebook groups for organizations, or they're fully engaged on Twitter. So what's important for me is that they're engaging with professionals here, and that they're thinking about their messaging and the content that they're producing. So it's not only the technology that they're learning, but it's also the use of the technology that is so much more important than just knowing how to be on Facebook. Most of them know that anyway. And they're getting a lot of criticism throughout the process to better their projects. So a social media project is never done on the first try, and stories are rewritten 3 or 4 times before they're sent over for publication. Overall, my goal is to prepare these students that when they get out of our school, when they're graduating, that they're ready to be the change agents in the profession. So that could be with having the experience as a journalist that they already thought about developing a business plan. I think that becomes much more important for journalists in particular, to also think about the business side of their profession. But also in multimedia reporting, in social media, that they're at the cutting edge when they're coming out of our program. Now, some of the challenges that my students are facing is what they're telling me after they graduated and they're on their first job is that they cannot implement all of the things that they learned in the classes, because the news organizations are not at that point yet. They're developing slower. So I tell them to have a little bit of patience, but that they're in a very good position to be the innovators in their field. And here's some of the feedback that my students have given me at the end of the class. 2 of the students wrote there was a realization that being social at its core has nothing to do with technology, but that it's a passion for fellow humans that they developed, and that the tools mean little. It's always very important for me that they think about how they put the technology to use, and that it's not just using the technology. And what I hear from a lot of my students is that they have an optimistic outlook once they come out of my class, and they do not see their profession as grim as they possibly did before coming into their class, and that they're ready to tackle some of these challenges. Now, since I can't be in St. Louis, again, all of my resources are on my website. I did a post on this, so feel free to go there. Feel free to email me, tweet me. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you about all of these things. And then in the end, I'd like to thank the Mass Comm and Society Division and the Graduate Education Interest Group again for awarding me this honor to present in this panel. And I'm looking forward to online conversations with all of you. Thank you.